Hey, what's up there? This is Cody, and in today's video, I'm going to explain what's been going on with the Bitcoin price and why I've decided lately to start loading the truck up with some Bitcoin buys. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that like button, and follow me on Threads and on X as well. Next, we're going to talk about the Bitcoin price, right? Bitcoin has been down over 12% in the last week or so. Ethereum down over 10% in the last week. And quite frankly, we've seen an absolutely epic level of capitulation. If we take a look at our chart TA, we can see here that I'm zoomed in here on the daily. We can see that Bitcoin came all the way down here to about 25,600 and has been bought up and now is kind of trading a little bit sideways since that Friday capitulation. Now, if we take a look at our RSI, again, RSI remains incredibly depressed at this point at 20 on the daily. And as a quick reminder, in order to find a time in which we saw such a huge capitulation, we have to go all the way back to the 2020 crash to find a time in which we have the RSI kind of in this level. We were previously down to about like 16, 17, and that's kind of where we were back in 2020. And if we look at our price, right, if we take a look at our RSI right now, we're at about 20. This goes all the way back. If we take a look at back to the June crash, we only went down to about 21 during the June 2022 crash. And even during November's FTX crash, we didn't have this level of oversold on the daily. But that's just something I kind of tell you about to sort of put your mind in the correct spot here and just realize that we're at a level of capitulation that is unseen, right? Unheard of at this later stage of the, I guess you could call it the bear market, or we're kind of in between the middle of a bear and a bull market. And Bitcoin has sold off so hard, and it really seems like it's sold off so hard for no apparent reason. Now, we talked about the FTX collapse. That was big news. 2020 COVID crash. We already know the reason behind that. But apart from some FUD surrounding Binance and the SEC, of course, attacking crypto at large, there's not really one singular event that kind of led to this massive fall in the Bitcoin price. No sort of black swan event. And this seems to be purely driven by just FUD at this point, just uncertainty and doubt on the Bitcoin price and at crypto as a whole. Now, this is something that I've been taking advantage of. Like I said before, I've actually been buying quite a bit of Bitcoin myself, and I made another buy again today at about 25,957. Any sort of time the Bitcoin price falls below the 26,000 level, I'm going to be looking at another opportunity to add to my Bitcoin holdings, because I think at this point we are just so oversold and we're due for a bounce. But even in the longer term, we have to realize, again, putting this into perspective, that over the last 8-9 months, Bitcoin has actually been in a pretty strong uptrend. Now, that uptrend was a little bit busted, just a little bit broken here by this recent fall. But even if you take that into account, we can see that Bitcoin is still at a nice place, and we're still on track here to go towards eventually being able to break out past 31K and push to 40K. So we're still in a long-term, or at least for the last 6 or 7 months, we are still in a uptrend, and I expect this uptrend will continue for the rest of the year. Now, that being said, it's not a guarantee that we're going to wind up considering. We're not going to push back above 31K by the end of the year, but just know that, again, we have the halving coming in 2024, and on top of that, a decision, potentially speaking, according to Forbes, a decision on the Bitcoin ETFs. They're saying early September, potentially speaking, according to Forbes. Early September, the SEC is going to make a decision on Bitcoin Spot ETF, and personally, I don't think it's going to happen, but thinking for the long term and not the short term, which is why I always make my buys and plans for the long term. It will eventually happen, whether it takes 2 years, whether it takes 3 years, whether it takes 5 years, it will eventually happen, and we will eventually get a Bitcoin spot ETF. And when that happens, the Bitcoin price is going to inflate. It's going to move higher on that news. That demand that's going to be coming into the system is going to push Bitcoin even higher. Now, if you guys are curious on how much price action or how high the Bitcoin price could go, then I definitely recommend you guys check out one of my videos in which I talk about the effect of demand on the Bitcoin supply. I'll have that linked in the description below. But next thing I want to talk about is the importance of the 200-day moving average. We saw the 200-day moving average here at about 27,200. Now, if we also take a look at our 200-day moving average, which is an excellent indicator, at least for me, that you're buying at a discount, we can see here that the last time it was this low was back in June, that June capitulation of 2023, and then before that, that March capitulation here in the during the banking crisis, and then for the most part, we saw that for the last, I'd say, up until April of 2022, we had a good chunk of time here to buy under the 200-day moving average. But traditionally speaking, Bitcoin doesn't really give you a lot of time under this 200-day moving average. It's a little bit here and a little bit there. And if we actually take a look at our 200 weekly, we can see something very similar. 200 weekly, we are right at that point or very close to the 200 weekly. The 200 weekly moving average actually provides us as a very nice support right now here at about 25,600. So I think that the downside that we could experience with Bitcoin, if there is downside, we could come down here to that level again, 25,600, find support there, or at least find support here at 25,000. Now, I do think that 25,000 is going to be incredibly strong support. We're going to see buyers show up at that level and push the Bitcoin price higher after briefly touching that level if we continue to dump. And I am very excited to buy near 25K again. That would be amazing for me. Next, I want to talk about what's been going on in the derivatives market. So derivatives have made quite a few changes here. In fact, if we take a look at our funding rates, you can see here that during the 17th of August, last week's capitulation, we've seen a change from green here to red. So that means that the shorts took control of the market after that point. We saw shorts take control here as longs were liquidated to the tune of $269 million. And we saw shorts take control. We saw a decrease in the open interest. And again, as a reminder, open interest is the total number of contracts. We've seen that move down dramatically from a high here of about 120,000 down to 91,000. So this market has been de-risked significantly. There are less of these leveraged longs open right now, and there is less volatility currently in the Bitcoin market, at least with your perpetual futures. We can see that there is much less volatility compared to where things were prior to this huge capitulation here. So we're just recently seeing the fact that the longs have regained control, and we're starting to see the open interest tick up just a little bit. So it looks like to me that buyers are very tentative in entering the market, that longs are very tentatively getting positions established right now, and the market is trying to heal from such a huge capitulation. Now, if we take a look at our fear and greed index, we're sitting here at about 33 or so on the fear side. I actually think that we're probably closer to extreme fear, given how much we've seen the price deteriorate in the last week. If you go ahead and take a look at where this lays out during the historical 1 year, you can see here that we're at a level that we haven't seen since June of 2023. Right now, we're sitting at about 31, or currently 33, and we are very close to extreme fear and a level we haven't seen since March, okay? Next I want to talk about is the exchange reserve for Bitcoin. So this is the number of Bitcoin on the exchanges, and we've seen a pretty nice drawdown in the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges, even during a time in which we've seen a huge amount of selling for the Bitcoin price. People continue to buy Bitcoin and take it off of exchanges. We've seen here in about the past couple of days, we went from about 2,075,000 down to 2,063,000. Okay, so we've seen a pretty nice number of Bitcoin exit exchanges. And if we look at that another way, we can see the exchange net flow. The past couple of days, we've seen a net negative flow. So we've been seeing Bitcoin pulled off of exchanges as people have been buying and taking their Bitcoin off of exchanges. There's been some concern and some worry about Binance and its ability to fund accounts, especially around in Europe. And people have been taking their Bitcoin off exchange. Definitely something I'd recommend. Take your Bitcoin and your crypto off of exchanges and put them into cold wallets. Next, we take a look at the SOPR. The Bitcoin SOPR right now is actually negative, or I would say under 1 at least. And this happened again during last week's capitulation. We saw it actually move under 1, go down to about 0.98. And so what that shows me is that a large number of these sellers have been selling at a loss. So they're kind of playing the momentum game right now. This huge capitulation that we saw here, many of these guys actually sold at a loss according to the SOPR, and the SOPR is putting us right now at a level below 1, so they continue to sell at a loss, and it looks like this is going to be, it's trying to rebound right now as short-term buyers are moving in and they're buying under 26K and then selling. It looks like we're moving back to a profitable region, but we're still a little bit off of that. We're about 0.99, very close here to that dotted line. Next, I want to talk about addresses with at least one Bitcoin balance. This has been moving up pretty steadily over the last year. And as the Bitcoin price tends to go down, we do tend to see more people accumulate at least one Bitcoin, and that's always a good sign. Right now, we're over the million point. We're at 1,013,000. And I love to see this because it shows kind of a bullishness that's spread amongst multiple addresses, and it's not just a couple of addresses that hold a majority of Bitcoin. All right, now we're going to talk about options real quick. So Bitcoin options, we see here that on the 25th of August, we have a large amount of call options that are going to be due, 1.1 million for call options, 600,000 for puts. Okay, and our max pain price is 28,500. Now, as a reminder, the max pain theory suggests that we will try to head towards this max pain price, and if that is the case, then we will be going towards significant upside. Currently, with the Bitcoin price being about 26,000, and that would be another further evidence that buyers are going to try to push the price up to this level in order to gain the max number of value, max number of profitability. So we shall see if that occurs. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is what's going on this week. NVIDIA has an earnings on the 23rd. That's going to be in a couple of days. This is going to be huge. It's going to move the market. NVIDIA's got $1 trillion market cap. And on top of that, they also make graphics cards, which are used by miners. So it'd be very interesting to see what their earnings are going to be like, and if they do beat earnings, I do believe that we're going to wind up seeing positive momentum in the Bitcoin market. It's going to drive the price even higher, especially if they talk about any sort of increase of demand for these Bitcoin miners or these mining graphics cards. And then, of course, we have our Market Watch economic report, and the Market Watch economic reports and the Fed speakers. And the most important thing that's going on this week is the fact that the Fed is going to be giving a number of speeches, including Jerome Powell, which is going to be talking at the Jackson Hole Summit on Friday. So expect that we're going to wind up seeing some volatility that day. But we also have the Fed officials that are going to be interviewed on Thursday as well. And Fed governors are going to be speaking tomorrow in addition to that. So there's going to be a lot of Fed coverage for the week. All right, so that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys have been doing in this market. Have you been buying Bitcoin? Have you been selling? Have you been on the sidelines waiting for a greater capitulation? Because there have been many people that I've seen on social media right now that are just continuing to wait and continuing for the price to move lower. They're on the sidelines, or they're very bearish at the moment. I am not bearish. I am actually bullish because I'm a contrarian, and I do love buying these huge capitulations because I am buying Bitcoin for the long term, not for the short term, and I do believe the price is going to be higher in the long term. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.